Hello and welcome to the PFF Fantasy Football Podcast. I'm your host, Ian Hartitz, and tonight we are breaking down both the Chiefs' victory over the Bills as well as the Cardinals' just domination. Is that a strong enough word? Just dismantling. We'll go with win for now. The Cardinals' Monday night win over the Cowboys, in addition to some waiver wire thoughts ahead of Week 7. Thank you, as always, for checking out the podcast. Appreciate all you consistent listeners out there. You can find us every Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday throughout the season. Have some good guests on later this week, but we'll worry about that later because right now we got games to break down, everyone. Chiefs 26, Bills 17. Not the best game for Patrick Mahomes, which I feel like we've been saying a lot this year, but this time it was different. It wasn't that he wasn't making the most out of his opportunities. He just didn't have that many opportunities because the Chiefs were running the ball all the time. When Mahomes was back there, it was just like, what do the Chiefs need? And he is going to find a way to pick it up. I mean, Clyde Edwards-Helaire touchdown nullified, 3rd and goal from 11. No problem. He'll find Travis Kelce for a touchdown. 2 straight runs and they're facing a 3rd and 11. No problem. Mahomes picks up, some of his 36 rushing yards to inexplicably find his way over the first down marker. I mean, the play he made to help set the Chiefs up for their, I believe it was 3rd touchdown of the game, where 3rd and 5, he's rolling out. Seems like it's a situation where he stopped. He even goes backwards for a second, turns his back to the play, all of a sudden puts his foot in the ground, bursts forward, gets within an inch of the freaking first down. Darrell Williams, next play, takes it to the house for 6. So just one of those performances from Mahomes where, 225 yards, 2 touchdowns on 21 of 26 passing. Obviously that's great, but I mean, as we've seen over these last couple seasons with Mahomes, the stats don't tell the full story. Truly does resemble the best quarterback I think any of us have seen play the position before. So we'll see if he can keep it up, but oh my goodness. I mean, the completion he had to Byron Pringle after, rolling out enough for the coverage to break down was wild. I mean, again, just a situation where no, it wasn't the 6 touchdown, 350-yard game we've also seen from him in the past, but certainly a game that, did show off all the upside that Mahomes has to offer as both a rusher and a passer. With the run game, it was the Clyde Edwards-Helaire show. Apologies for mispronouncing that in the past. Hit me up on Twitter if and when I mispronounce these people's names. As someone that literally has tits in my last name, I am very, I need to be more conscious about getting these last names right. So Clyde Edwards-Helaire, very good game, 26 carries for 161 yards. Mentioned before, he had a touchdown from inside the 10-yard line, nullified by penalty. I've seen the stat, everyone. When we calm down with this stuff, I looked at every single run he's had, inside the 5-yard line, and then people in my mentions proceeded to, bark about whether or not one of the 7 runs could have gone into the end zone or not. I mean, it's a situation where Chiefs offensive line hasn't set him up for a lot of success in his very few carries near the goal line. It's already a small sample with the 16-game season. Now I want to try to look at, inside X yard line, just not, an argument I'm really going to get behind, because Edwards-Helaire has been one of these players throughout the year. Even if I think his week 1 kind of broken tackle totals were painting, a different story than necessarily what we saw in weeks 2 through 5. He's been playing well. He's been getting the pass game upside, 4 catches in this game too, even if they only went for 8 yards, and continuing to dominate snaps. He played 49 snaps in this game. Darrell Williams down at just 23, Darwin Thompson at 3. So, they could not stop him throughout this performance. I mean, Darrell Williams only had 6 carries, Darwin Thompson 3. So the Bills, I mean, it was like their strategy to pretty much play pass first and let the Chiefs run the ball their heart's desires. And to the Bills' credit, I mean, if they had gotten a couple stops along the way, Clyde, at one point, he fumbled and his knee ended up being down, so it wasn't a fumble. I get it, but Bills were in a position to actually take the lead late in the 4th, which, in a game against the Chiefs probably isn't what we'd be expecting there. So, it was not the best strategy, I guess, with the way things turned out. But, the idea of taking the ball out of Patrick Mahomes' hands, it doesn't look good when someone runs for 245 yards on you. But again, it did kind of keep the Bills in competition for a little bit longer than we might have expected otherwise. With the receiving core, Travis Kelce, 5 catches, 65 yards, 2 scores. Demarcus Robinson did his thing with, every time we expect Mecole Hardman game or Mecole Hardman season to be coming up, Demarcus Robinson catches 5 catches, 69 yards, no touchdowns. Mecole did not have a catch, was targeted just once. Frustrating usage because he was out there. I mean, as much as you would want to see him in 3 wide receiver sets along with these other guys. And, specifically compared to the other wide receivers on the Chiefs, Robinson had 69 snaps. Tyreek had 67. Mecole, okay, as I'm looking at this right now, he was not out there as much as the other guys. This was the problem, everyone. Tyreek and Demarcus Robinson were the top 2 receivers in snaps. Mecole at 29, Byron Pringle at 28. So this is not good. I've been dubbing him as, the handcuff throughout this offseason. I'm going to take my L right here, right right now. I know Mecole Hardman can do a bunch with touches, but if they're not even going to scheme, if they're not going to scheme him up, those jet sweeps, the Deebo Samuel pop pass special, stuff like that, if we're not getting that and we're not even getting consistent usage because of Byron freaking Pringle, it's going to be tough to not only start Mecole, but even to hold on to him at this point. I'll be cutting him from several, season-long leagues that don't have any sort of dynasty potential after seeing this sort of usage. Not good. And it's a shame because, again, this is someone that literally broke the record for yards per target as a rookie, making all sorts of explosive plays throughout, his young career, and the fact that they can't find a way to get him the ball more with Sammy Watkins sidelined, disappointing to see. And the reality that Watkins, doesn't seem to be dealing with a season-long injury or anything of that nature with the hamstring injury makes Mecole all the more cuttable. Tyreek Hill, 3 catches, 20 yards. He did get 1 rush attempt, but, just 3 targets on the evening, so awfully quiet. He has now gone 15 games without 100 receiving yards and a score. Didn't have a streak longer than 5 since his rookie season. So even the Alex Smith year, and we're seeing more big popping performances from Tyreek, they'll still be there. I think it's just a matter of the coverage, focusing on him so much. And in this game, just Mahomes only having 26 pass attempts. But, we're waiting on that big breakout Tyreek kind of vintage performance. Otherwise, didn't see anyone on the Chiefs even rack up 70 total receiving yards. Good win. Win is a win. They did not even need to put their offense really into full gear. We're able to just win it on the ground. So credit to Clyde Edwards-Helaire. I know the big question moving forward with him in this run game is what is Le'Veon Bell going to mean to the system? I do think that Edwards-Helaire is going to remain the lead back and lead them in touches more weeks than not. Darrell Williams is obviously the candidate to get kicked out of this committee sooner rather than later. But, as we've seen with the Gus Edwards of the role, Gus Edwards and the Justin Jacksons of the world shouldn't be, and even like Ronald Jones with the Buccaneers, shouldn't be so quick to assume a new running back can immediately take the role. So if you can get Le'Veon Bell as a bench stash, absolutely, but I would not be lining up to start him as early as week 7 or, even immediately after that. I think eventually it's going to be Edwards-Helaire, 15, 20 touches per game and Le'Veon getting closer to 10. Maybe we see some more 2-back stuff, but they drafted Edwards-Helaire thinking they were going to have Damian Williams, and I think that they probably just want Le'Veon to kind of help shore up some of their things in the pass game because that is, and has been really what he's been best at throughout his career. All right, now other side of the ball with the Bills, Josh Allen, 14 for 27, 122 yards, 2 touchdowns, and a pick. Pretty, Josh Allen vintage performance, I'd say. He had a 5-14 start to the game, but it was electric because that's what Josh Allen is. Even when things are not going right, Josh Allen is still out there making all kinds of plays, whether that's good or bad. Didn't get a ton of help throughout the evening. He had a deep touchdown, borderline drop by Stephon Diggs, was able to get back and get a connection with Diggs for the score from the goal line. Great play by both of them, but just situation where didn't quite see that 300-yard ceiling or even the immense rushing upside. He had 42 yards on the ground, but no scores. The Bills didn't rush for a touchdown as a team. Otherwise, I'm sure Allen would have tried to be the guy that got in there. So just honestly, a situation of play volume. The Chiefs were able to soak up so much of this game and so much of the time possession that Allen just never really had much of a chance to come back in the second half. We were at the 10-minute mark of the fourth quarter, and the Bills offense had 7 plays at that point. So even though Allen was able to drive them down for a quick touchdown, never got really a true chance until it was the waning moments of the game, which is when he threw that pick. So he's going to be okay, everyone. Titans and Chiefs back-to-back. Obviously not easy matchups, with a whopping 1 combined loss between them. Ultimate get-right spot next week against the Jets. We'll be continuing to rank Josh as a top 5 fantasy QB for that spot. In the backfield, so Devin Singletary continued to lead the way here, 36 snaps compared to just 13 for Zach Moss. We did not see TJ Yeldon at all, and that's kind of what we were expecting here. That's been the case with this backfield, even going back to last year with Singletary and Frank Gore mostly splitting the touches there. So, Moss had 5 carries for 10 yards, Singletary 10 carries, 32 yards, and Singletary got the backfield's 2 targets. Moss is technically the goal line back, but it's like being the goal line back in New England, like talking with Sony Michel or Damian Harris. Like, really, what's the point of being goal line back when your quarterback is the one that's going to be getting the majority of the rushing touchdowns? So Singletary, he's been playing better, than a lot of running backs this year in terms of broken tackles and things. This wasn't one of his better games, but I would hope that they continue to use him, heavily over Zach Moss. I do think he's a significantly better talent. He's been better this season. He's been in the system longer. So Singletary over Moss, please. If he can stick with this, 60, 70% snap rate while Moss is a true number 2 back, we'll get some more useful weeks out of Singletary. I do think this was a little bit game flow induced, and as Moss, continues to get healthier, we'll see him flirt back with that 50-50 line. But, honestly, both these guys, it's going to be hard to, say that either will be a top 24 back at any point in 2020. With the wide receivers on the Bills, Stephon Diggs, so good. Caught 6 of 8 targets, 46 yards, and a touchdown. Mentioned it before, but just the toe drag he was able to put out there and the way he was able to catch it and kind of get free for the whole thing in the corner of the end zone was very impressive. Drew a number of penalties as well. And again, mentioned before, we had that potential deep ball touchdown that just wasn't able to get his hands fully on, but the defender kind of made a good play. I've seen far more egregious drops this season. So Diggs, continue to fire him up as anyone's idea of a high-end wide receiver 1 weekly basis. He's a guy I was targeting in my drafts at value, but certainly someone that I probably should have had ranked higher in the preseason as that, wide receiver 20. Hey, Josh Allen, as erratic as he can be sometimes, we saw last year with Smokey and to a lesser extent Cole Beasley, still put together some big performances. So we got to be careful with the wide receiver switching teams. We've seen that in the past, but I think when it's a player the caliber of Diggs or the caliber of DeAndre Hopkins, we got to be a little more willing in the future to make exceptions. I know Odell Beckham Jr. got us all scared off after going to Cleveland in 2019, but Diggs truly one of the league's top and single best talents at the position. Smokey Brown got goose egged on 4 targets, was kind of getting fed early. Had one such a pass hit him in the face mask though after Allen was a little erratic on the first few. So this wasn't a good game for him, and he didn't really look all that healthy when he was out there as well. So he's someone that I'm going to kind of be in a wait and see approach for the time being, because with him playing as banged up as he is right now, I don't think he's going to be able to provide that wide receiver 3 upside we were hoping for. Cole Beasley had a nice touchdown on a slant inside the 10-yard line. 9th season and putting up career numbers. You love to see it from Beasley. Hashtag too much sauce. Have loved watching that guy since his days with the Cowboys. All right, everyone, quick shout out to our sponsor before we get on to the Cowboys' horrific loss to the Cardinals. PristineAuction.com. Check out their daily auctions with $1 starting bids on over 8,000 football items up for auction. Pristine Auction guarantees authenticity on every product. Use code PFF today for $10 off your first invoice. And we're currently giving away a signed Amari Cooper jersey. That's right, the same guy that scored the Cowboys' only touchdown in Week 6 of the 2020 NFL season. Rate and review the podcast, and we will be choosing a winner next week. Love the folks at the PristineAuction.com. So yes, Cowboys lost the Cardinals 38-10. If you had Kenyan Drake on your fantasy squad, you are a happy man or woman, because this dude finally gave us the performance we were looking for. And by the performance we were looking for, I mean 2 touchdowns, one of which was, from the 2-inch line after Kyler almost scored and nobody touched him, and the second of which was a 69-yard jaunt through a Cowboys defense that looked like they did not want to be anywhere near a football field. So hey, 164 yards was out there. It's good to know he still can run in a straight line that far, but a situation where I think we've seen, come on, Dearness Johnson was the talk of the town for a week because of after what he did in this Cowboys rush defense. I mean, it truly is a joke. And, the fact they had Leighton Vander Esch back tonight as well and still weren't able to do anything, truly a sad state of the Cowboys run defense right now. Just a situation I think that, look, Drake is still the lead back in Arizona, 39 snaps for him, 21 for Chase Edmonds. Drake had 20 carries and Edmonds only had 5. We're still seeing Edmonds a little bit more involved in the passing game, although both Edmonds and Drake had just 2 targets in this one. Just a situation where, I think it says a little bit more about the state of this Cowboys defense than, an assertion that we should be expecting this Cardinals offense to just be a week in, week out juggernaut. Because honestly, Kyler Murray, while he did make some awesome plays out there, overall performance, a little bit concerned. He had a breathtaking, 80-yard touchdown to Christian Kirk on just a deep bomb, but, had chances for other ones. He sailed a ball to Fitzgerald in the red zone that should have been a touchdown. He had Andy Isabella open really open deep once on like the third play of the game. Another situation where he maybe could have hit him with a good throw later, missed both of those. And yeah, I mean, just it was even DeAndre Hopkins couldn't get going. Only caught 2 of 8 targets, one of which was an unreal 60-yard catch and run. That guy's yards after the catch ability remains to be super underrated. But yeah, so Kyler, I mean, 9 of 24 against this Cowboys defense. You hate to see that. But as has been the case all season in fantasy football land, it doesn't matter because this dude is the next big thing at the position in terms of a rushing talent. 10 carries, 74 yards, and a touchdown. As I was saying last week, Kyler Murray truly runs like an angry toddler, and he's the fastest angry toddler I have ever seen. So when he's out there, he's usually the fastest guy on the field, erasing angles. His agility is absurd. Just no one can get this dude. So he's continuing to get the goal line touchdowns. I believe that's 4 or 5 for him this year. Absolutely wild, the things Kyler has done on the ground. It was nice of him to give the one rushing score to Kenyan Drake, but he is clearly willing to run the ball at the goal line, and the Cardinals have accordingly dialed up some good stuff for him. That is his 6 rushing touchdowns on the season through 6 games for Kyler Murray. Cam Newton's NFL record at the position is 14. Those guys might be trying to break it this season. All right, moving on to the Cowboys side of things. Yeah, Andy Dalton, not great. Kind of made this point before the game, but, a loss in this whole discussion that, okay, best weapons of his career, which is debatable. That 2015 team with a prime, 2015 Bengals team with a prime AJ Green, healthy Tyler Eifert, Marvin Jones, Mohamed Sanu, and, their backfield with Hill and Gio. They really had some good guys out there. Now, the issue with the Cowboys is, I'm not saying that Cooper, Gallup, CD, and Zeke aren't like a better unit than them, but the offensive line problems, particularly now, just aren't even close. And I'm not saying those Bengals offensive lines were necessarily awesome, but, the fact Dak was doing as good as he was, despite these O-line issues, I think speaks a lot to who he is as a quarterback as well. So they're already without Tyron Smith, Lyle Collins, Joe Looney. That's both their starting tackles and their center. And now Zach Martin left this game as well. So honestly, Zach Martin's their best lineman, period. To lose him just hurts this entire run game and offense. And I think that's what we saw out there, from the beginning. Just miscommunications on the O-line. There was never a second where it seemed like Dalton had a ton of time to throw. Even when he did, he was, seemed like he was more willing to check the ball down than really take any sort of significant shots downfield. End of the day, 266 yards on 54 pass attempts, 1 touchdown, and 2 interceptions, neither of which, could particularly be called someone else's fault other than the ref. I would say the one, to Kirkpatrick where he pretty much tackled CeeDee Lamb. We'll give Dalton a break on that one, but I think there was at least one other interception Dalton threw. He had the play in the first half where he literally hit Jordan Hicks in the chest with it and it got dropped. So, maybe both the interceptions weren't Dalton's fault, but he was certainly playing with fire in the game. Look, he's going to be, based on the volume and based on this Cowboys defense continuing to let teams score all these points and having the talent around him he does, he's going to be in the QB2 territory. But again, in his best season ever in 2015, he was the fantasy QB 11. I am not expecting him to flirt with, QB1 production more weeks than not. Maybe he can get there on the volume, but, he's not Dak Prescott. He's not anything close to Dak Prescott. He has no rushing floor, never has, and, has so much less upside as a passer as well. So this situation where, credit to the Red Rocket for being in this situation and getting the chance to go out there and show that he can be America's team's quarterback. But right now, America's team looks freaking awful. Number one, the NFC East, good for them, but man, not the performance that really makes you feel good about Dalton and these guys moving forward. Of course, wasn't all Dalton's fault. Also, $90 million man, Ezekiel Elliott, 12 carries, 49 yards on the ground, 8 catches, 31 yards through the air, and 2 fumbles. And he has now lost at least 5 fumbles in 3 of his 5 NFL seasons. Problem they never really had at Ohio State. Surprising to see, but, my favorite stat I've been able to pull up to kind of reference this is LaShawn McCoy, one of my favorite players from last decade. We've all seen him run before. He holds that ball like a freaking loaf of bread in one hand. Shady McCoy never had more than 4 fumbles in the season for the last 12 years, despite, regularly racking up over 300 touches. So just madness. And, the fact that Zeke was this ineffective is wild. Look, he's going to have better days. It's fun to make the Tony Pollard better than Zeke jokes from time to time. Obviously, Zeke is one of the league's better running backs, but, he's not in that Derrick Henry zone. He's probably not even in the Dalvin Cook, Christian McCaffrey, Kamara zone. So if you're paying, a top 8 instead of a top 1 or 2 running back, $90 million, you can see the issues with that. And a shout out to Ben Baldwin, always doing some awesome analytic stuff. He had a great stat from the first half where the Cowboys lost 15.1 expected points on 12 combined Zeke rushes and targets. Absolute madness, everyone. With the wide receivers, hilarious first half target distribution. Well, not hilarious for all you out there with these guys on your teams, but Amari Cooper only had one target in the first half. CeeDee Lamb had 0. He did have one, but it was nullified on a penalty. But when things all came undone at the end, we did kind of see similar target distribution as Dak. Zeke led the way with 11, which was more just, again, Dalton being willing to check it down whenever pressure kind of arose. Cooper and CeeDee Lamb each had 10. Michael Gallup had 6. Dalton Schultz had 5. Tony Pollard 4. Noah Brown 2. Cedric Wilson 3. So, 54 pass attempts. All these guys are going to have room to eat. Obviously, just not nearly as efficient as it would be with Dak. Michael Gallup dropped a touchdown. Kept getting the goal line fades, though. I mean, clearly Dalton wants to put it on him. While Gallup did drop one, he also beat Patrick Peterson deep on another one, and Dalton sailed it on him. So it wasn't all his fault, but it wasn't a great game. CeeDee Lamb ended up, catching 7 passes for 64 yards after that really quiet first half. Shows some nice yak ability, which I know he has, but that dude just looks so slender out there. You don't see him getting away and breaking too many tackles with physicality, but, the feet are flying when he has the ball in his hand. And then Amari Cooper, ultimately 7 catches, 79 yards, 1 touchdown on that, just awesome little route he runs on the goal line where he kind of fakes the cross or comes back. I want to call it a pivot route. Maybe I'm wrong, but either way, Amari Cooper makes it look easy, and he is a very hard man to guard but one defender. So it was good to see them get Cooper going a little more in the second half. It looks like he is going to continue to be McCarthy's wide receiver 1. Lamb's going to continue to get fed, just having these great matchups in the slot. I wouldn't give up on Gallup just yet, but again, he's more of a boomer bust guy with the way they're using him this year. So definitely not a situation where we can expect any sort of consistency from Gallup moving forward. With Schultz, 4 catches, 35 yards. He was really involved in the first half, but, I think he's going to be a tight end 2 here. Look, this Cowboys offense was the unit that we wanted, anyone involved in, but I think moving forward, it's going to be more of a situation where in good matchups, maybe we can take a look, but otherwise it's only going to be, Zeke, Cooper, Lamb, everything else. Let's chill out a little bit. Quick shout out to another sponsor before we get on to some waiver wire thoughts, everyone. All-time first depositors. Let's try that again. All first-time depositors at Monkey Knife Fight that put at least $20 in their account while using promo code PFF will receive a free PFF Edge annual subscription. That's a $40 value for just $20, and you'll get the opportunity to turn that $20 into even more money playing daily fantasy and prop games at one of the fastest-growing fantasy sports sites in the USA in Monkey Knife Fight. So go to Monkey Knife Fight and deposit your $20 with promo code PFF today to receive your free PFF Edge annual subscription. All right, everyone, waiver wire thoughts. Now, let me start us off with, there is no one this week that I would be busting your fab for, because most of these injuries are situations that are muddled or, there's situations that are going to change soon. And there weren't, really any just key long-term injuries, maybe with the exception of Raheem Mostert, but not too many super long-term injuries that I think open up a ton of value. So, we got bye weeks on the horizon. I get it if you need to try to get a spot starter in there, but none of these people I would, be recommending as, the Mike Davis, the Justin Jefferson plays from past weeks, where we were really pressing you guys to try to get them. Even like Chase Claypool last week as number 1 ad, I would put anyone this week, below him. I would say probably don't go more than 30% above the fab, on any of these guys. I know the situation is, different with everyone in different leagues, and if you have all your fab available, okay, that's a different conversation. But in general, I'm just a little bit, hesitant on trusting any of these guys with, legit top 12 production or anything resembling that at their position moving forward. But getting into it, Jerick McKinnon and JaMycal Hasty with Raheem Mostert now on IR. They're facing the Patriots this week. So when Mostert was out before, Jerick McKinnon had 14 rushes in both games and 12 combined targets on 62 and 92% snap rates. The problem is that there's no Jeff Wilson, who was out with a calf injury in week 6, and we saw McKinnon play 23 snaps, but Hasty was right there at 15. When Mostert came back, they actually used McKinnon strictly in the scat back role, and Wilson was actually playing more with Mostert than he was with only McKinnon in there. So again, it's confusing. I don't really know what's going on. Kyle Shanahan, clearly now that he has Deebo Samuel and George Kittle back in action, I don't think he feels the need to get McKinnon quite as involved as a receiver. And if they like what Hasty's doing on the ground, wouldn't be shocking to see a situation where Hasty actually works ahead of McKinnon in some of these early down situations. So if Jeff Wilson is back there, I think we will see a 3-back committee of sorts. Gun to my head, I do think McKinnon is the league guy. And, with Mostert out, I'm going to be ranking him as a top 24 back this week. But, don't think he's going to be climbing in that top 16 or anything. I think that 92% snap rate and him getting all those touches was more of a result of not having Debo, not having Kittle. And McKinnon pretty much had to be the number one option in this offense. So now that that's not the case, they also got Ayuk doing good things. I just don't think they're going to go out of their way to force feed McKinnon the ball. They were doing that with Raheem Mostert because that dude is explosive as all hell and making great plays. I'm not saying McKinnon hasn't played some good ball this season, but again, didn't have Debo or Kittle in the lineup. I think we're going to see those guys prioritized way over any of these running backs moving forward. So, McKinnon, if he's out there, get him and you can fire him up as a, low-end RB2 flex option. Hasty's going to be a wait-a-week guy. I don't hate the thought of getting him, especially if we get some more clarity on how long Jeff Wilson could be out. But ultimately, I do think it's going to be more of a committee set with this offense looking to get their talented receiving options more involved moving forward. All right, with the Eagles now, because Miles Sanders is going to be missing the Thursday night game against the Giants, Boston Scott. So in week 1, with Miles Sanders out, it was Boston Scott playing 56% of snaps, 9 carries, 2 receptions. Corey Clement was right there, about 37% snaps, 6 carries, 2 receptions. Now, I don't think that's what we're going to see moving forward. I think we're actually going to get closer to a 70-30 Scott split. That was more what it was last season and the few times that we saw Scott out there. And he's been used so much over Clement really ever since that week 1 game. So last week, Clement was active even though Sanders left. And Clement had no touches on just 7 snaps on offense. Now, Boston Scott, 35 snaps, only 2 rushes and 4 targets, but this was a situation where they were in heavy comeback mode against the Ravens. Scott was pretty much the only guy consistently on the field, so that means he's their pass down back, and that was kind of the big thing with Clement. I mean, when he was having his heyday with the Eagles, winning the Super Bowl and making, I think he had over 100 yards in that game, or pretty darn close. So if Clement's not going to be getting the pass down work, I don't know if he's really going to be getting any sort of consistent usage. So Scott's going to be someone that I'm going to be ranking higher than Jerick McKinnon this week, both for the matchup and for the projected role. I think Scott's going to be a legit top 20 option, not a top 12 guy like some of these people. We're not treating him like Alexander Madison. Too soon. All right, sorry guys. But with this matchup against the Giants, not an awful defense. I mean, look, they're 6th in the fewest yards before contact per attempt, but when you just consider the consistently awful situations the offense puts them in, and we've still seen them give up 90 yards and 2 scores to Zeke, 113 yards to Benny Snell, even 82 yards on just 16 carries to David Montgomery. Certainly not a unit we need to fear. We were chasing opportunity with running backs, and Boston Scott has a lot of it. So I would say, in most league sizes, judging on who's available, if you can get DeAndre Swift ahead of Boston Scott, I kind of get that. But otherwise, I would say for week 7 alone, Boston Scott would be my top recommended waiver ad for the guys that are probably out there. If Justin Jackson's available, go get him. I would assume people probably picked him up and held him through the bye, but just as a reminder, in week 5, this was a game the Chargers were leading 20-3. Jackson led the way with 59% snaps. Kelly was at 35%. Jackson 15 carries, Kelly 11, and Jackson had the 5 receptions while Kelly just had 1. Now, Kelly did have all 4 snaps inside the 10-yard line. What we're looking at here is that Justin Jackson is pretty much the Chargers' poor man's version of Austin Eckler, and Kelly is the poor man's version of Melvin Gordon. So they're not could be as good as those backfields were, but you know what? With Herbert moving the ball, you can definitely do worse than someone getting 10 to 15 touches, if not more, if you're Justin Jackson in this offense. So with Jackson getting the pass down work, I do think that's going to be a little more consistently valuable than being the quote unquote goal line back. We just don't know if that was, it was a fluke. It's all of a 4 rep sample size. And I do think that Jackson, his ability to run between the tackles has honestly looked just as good, if not better, than Kelly this season and last season. He's been the better overall running back. And if they want to just end up kind of feeding him, if Kelly's fumble problems pop up again, I know he went 1 game without one. Good job, man. But if a third fumble hits that ground, the defense gets it. Wouldn't be shocked if Jackson completely takes over. So Jackson will be, can be treated as an RB2 this week. I would try to find someone else to start other than Kelly. Again, without that pass game floor, you're looking at a touchdown dependent RB3 option at best. So DeAndre Swift, I don't think that we're seeing a true takeover situation. It's good to hear that, coming out of the bye, they're obviously getting them more involved, but let's take a little bit of a step back and look at what led DeAndre Swift getting all this usage and then all this production. First of all, he played great against the Jaguars. I mean, look, he had some truly solid runs, and that wasn't just that chunk, 50-yarder where he was more or less untouched. He was actually making dudes miss out there, and he's caught 60 of 20 targets this year. I mean, that week 1 drop that could have won them that game against the Bears. Thing of the past, Stafford trusts him in the passing game. He's clearly the number 1 pass down back. The problem is that Kerryon Johnson, Jamal Agnew, these guys are still stealing 20% of the snaps and a handful of touches per game. And Adrian Peterson, it wasn't like he was just full go and kind of got surpassed by Swift. I mean, he was experiencing pain in his side last week in practice. He was a DMP on Thursday. I mean, there were enough questions kind of about his health that reports were coming out before the game saying that he was expected to get a normal workload. Obviously didn't see that happen. So Swift, as someone getting 10 plus carries per game, 5 targets, we can take that. Absolutely. That's, an almost an every week flex starter, and he'll be in that RB2 borderline. But as long as AP siphoning off, 10, 15 carries per week himself, he's essentially being, a Frank Gore for what the Jets had, with any running back that comes into there. So AP, he's, anyone's idea of a touchdown dependent RB3 right now. Please try to start someone else on a week to week basis. And then with Swift, I'd say every week flex option with the potential for a little bit more, but I do question, if we're truly looking at an RB1 ceiling due to the presence of Agnew, Kerryon, and again, AP not going anywhere, particularly when he is healthy. All right, Mike Williams seemed to be pretty banged up at the end of last game. I hope someone has him in your league, but just want to say if he doesn't, go get this dude. I understand Justin Herbert's, been feeding Keenan and even Hunter Henry. I mean, those were the guys getting fed targets, even with Mike healthy for some of those games. But we've seen Herbert out there and the things he's doing. I mean, this guy has legit been a top 8 fantasy quarterback this year when he's out there. So over the last 3 seasons, Mike Williams has averaged a league best 18 yards per catch. Nobody else is over 17. I really do think if Mike Williams was in a different situation in the league, we would view him more as an alpha wide receiver 1 as opposed to kind of this number 2 option behind Keenan Allen. Both Keenan and Mike Williams are fantastic talents, and I think with Herbert under center, we might get a chance to see both of them shine. So obviously Keenan is the one we're going to be ranking higher week after week after week, but wouldn't it be shocking if we see as they develop a little more chemistry? I certainly do believe Williams is going to be prioritized over Guyton and Johnson more weeks than not. So again, Mike Williams is out there. Go get him. You could certainly do worse than having someone getting 5 to 8 targets per game than from Justin Herbert. So AJ Green came out, not complete dust, apparently. Weeks 1 through 5, he had 14 catches for 119 yards. And week 6 alone, 8 catches for 96 yards. Obviously, he's still not looking all that explosive, but had a team high 11 targets in that game. Clearly, the Bengals aren't done with him just yet, even though if his sideline antics continue to look like someone that doesn't really want to be there. We're going to see, it's Higgins, Boyd, and AJ Green kind of rotating as the number 1 guy week to week. Burrow has more dropbacks than literally any quarterback this season. We've seen the up and down efficiency, but as long as he is literally dropping back more than anyone else, we will see these games where each of Higgins, Boyd, and AJ can get their A+ targets. I would still be prioritizing Higgins and Boyd. I just think they're better players right now, and we've seen pretty much any efficiency metric back that up. But with AJ Green still being out there, still getting these targets, he's at least someone that if he's on the waiver wire, again, you could do worse than someone getting potentially 8 to 10 targets per week, even if they are of the dusty variety like AJ Green. All right, last sponsor here before we get out of here after a few more waiver wire thoughts. If you like fantasy football, you need to be playing on Underdog Fantasy, my favorite new fantasy football app. Underdog Fantasy just released an all-new format for their snake draft. It's called Battle Royale. So in Battle Royale, you draft a 1-week team like you normally would, but instead of only competing against the other teams in your specific draft, you compete with teams from other drafts. This way, they pull together the prizes so they can offer big tournament-style payouts while keeping the live snake draft format. The first Battle Royale is already up in the Underdog app and website. It's $5 to enter. Has a $25,000 prize pool and pays out $5,000 to first place. So make your first deposit today and be sure to use my code PFF after you do. Let them know that I sent you. Final 3 waiver ads here. Thank you as always for sticking with me here on the PFF Fantasy Football Podcast. Tim Patrick had 2 really nice deep catches in that Broncos win over the Patriots. So Drew Lock, we were kind of joking about it on the Sunday review pod, but about, him going 10 for 24 and, having 2 pretty ill-advised interceptions, but who cares because it was entertaining. But he could be a fantasy-friendly quarterback for these guys. An 18-yard average target depth is absolutely insane. Usually we see guys like, Jameis, 2019 Matthew Stafford, leading the league at like that 11 to 12 range at the most. Usually if you see someone with a double-digit A-dot period, that's someone that's, kind of a fearless gunslinger. Drew Lock is like Jameis Winston after a freaking Coke binge or something. I mean, just to be out there and throwing downfield that often, just absolutely wild. He had 5 big-time throws on the day. day. That was tied for the most of the week. One of my favorite PFF signature stats. And look, Tim Patrick, I think he gets passed up by Jerry Jeudy at some point. I think that talent wins out. But you know what? Patrick's looking good himself. Locke trusts him. The Broncos trust him. And either way, even if, Jeudy beats him out, we're still looking at, likely top 2 wide receiver in this offense for sure, and more likely I think is a top 2 overall pass game option, even with Noah Fant, likely to come back sooner rather than later. So upcoming schedule for the Broncos: Chiefs, Chargers, Falcons, Raiders, Dolphins, Saints. I mean, look, against the Chiefs and Chargers, maybe not, but Falcons, Raiders, and the Saints, I mean, those are 3 legit matchups where we could be treating Patrick as an upside wide receiver 3. I think he's a real nice guy to have on the bench. Anytime we can get someone that is truly flirting with being their team's top 2 pass game options on a weekly basis, and I'm underselling him because he's been the number 1 guy really these last few weeks, and to have that sort of upside and have it be on the cheap for a player that has impressed, I think he's a good guy to have on the old bench. Rob Gronkowski, I think, is someone we can get back to treating as an every week, upside tight end 2, maybe even on that tight end 1 borderline. It's not so much anything he did. I still think he looks awfully stiff out there running routes. He's not the same talent as before. He's getting his legs back under him a little bit, but man, I did a Twitter cut up of the throws that Brady was putting on Gronk, and every single time it was like Brady just putting it between 2 dudes exactly where it needed to be. You know what? These guys have been doing this for 10 years, so if we should expect anyone to be able to continue this sort of efficiency, it would be Gronk and Brady. And, having OJ Howard out of the picture obviously makes things even easier. Cam Brate still been out there a little bit, has caught 7 passes, 50 yards, and a score over the past 3 weeks, but not even over 50% snaps. Meanwhile, Gronk is playing almost an every down role. So he's out there. Okay, he had 8 targets last week, and Chris Godwin and Mike Evans combined for 9. I don't think we're going to see Gronk almost out targeting their top 2 wide receivers more weeks than not, but at a minimum, he sure is looking like the number 3 pass game option in this offense. I guess Bruce Arians has just never had a tight end like Rob Gronkowski. Okay, sorry about that lame joke, everyone. Last one before we get out of here. Darren Fells, Houston Texans tight end. I would probably be looking to play Fells over Gronk this week, all things equal. So Jordan Akins left in week 4. Normally this is a 2 tight end system with Fells and Akins. Since then, Fells has caught 2 passes for 21 yards, 2 passes for 57 yards in the score. And last week, 6 catches, 85 yards, and a touchdown. 80% snap rates the whole way. Not fluky. He scored 7 touchdowns in 2019. I mean, okay, his 40-yarder a couple weeks ago was pretty fluky on a busted coverage, but truly, Deshaun Watson has consistently looked Fells' way in the red zone. He is not fast at all. I think he's turning 34 very soon. He's got the former basketball player tagline, but you don't really see that same sort of athleticism at this point in his career. But he still has some underrated yak ability. I don't even know how to describe it, but big lumbering guy out there, not the easiest dude to get in the ground. So I think it's like kind of a poor man's version of Minnesota or Philadelphia with the Texans, where okay, obviously Dallas Goedert, Irv Smith are much more talented than either Fells or Akins, but like Irv Smith, like Goddard, you take the tight end 1 out of the picture and you actually have a situation where we can start to trust these guys as realistic, borderline tight end 1 fantasy options. So, obviously if we're starting a team, we want Irv Smith or Dallas Goedert over Darren Fells. But we're not starting a team. We're just trying to score fantasy points. And when you consider that Fells has Deshaun Watson throwing him the ball and, a pass-first offense, unlike those other guys, a situation that you can get behind, and we're going to be ranking him ahead of, numerous tight ends here moving forward. So that's going to do it, everyone. Thank you for tuning in, as always, to Pro Football Focus Fantasy Football Podcast. You can check me out on Twitter at iHeartitz. Always have these links going up in the morning and plenty of articles on the way. Got my QB rankings out on Tuesday, taking stock of every single NFL backfield on Wednesday, wide receiver cornerback matchups, tight end analysis on Thursday, also mismatch manifesto on Thursday, and finally a DFS deep dive on Friday. So if I don't touch on any topics here that you want to know about, please check out the articles. I usually get at least a couple sentences on every single fantasy relevant player for every week. So thank you again for tuning in. I am Ian Hartitz. This has been the PFF Fantasy Football Podcast. Until next time, take care, everybody.
Thanks for watching the PFF YouTube channel. And if you want to subscribe, all you have to do is push the button. Don't forget everything you get. A little fantasy, push the button. A little green line for the gambling aspects of the game, push the button. College football, push the button. The YouTube channel from PFF.